Now, you told us, people who watch this show are hardcores and they want to follow the detail, follow sort of the cat's whiskers before we start to know what's going on. You mentioned that in Florida, it's the only state that actually starts to count postal votes before Election Day. When do we start to see that? Can we see that now? Do we start to see results a week out, 2 days out? When do we start to see the real votes in Florida?
Well, I expect it over the next few days, and I'll follow up on that. And I understand just recently Ohio did the same. So that's 2 states. But I'll follow up on that, Paul.
Yeah, please.
The bottom line is that there seems to be record numbers of early voters around the country, but still not as many as others anticipated. And I think that's because Donald Trump caught the coronavirus, and that created some uncertainty for people. But what I'm looking at in Florida and what I'm looking at in television advertising is, and in fact in his speeches from the steps of the White House, is that he is trying to target seniors. And that's what I'm most concerned about, because that has been a very solid base for Donald Trump. And that base has moved against him in recent times. So the very first event he's doing after he leaves the White House today is down in Florida, and it's specifically targeting seniors and some of the minority communities down there.
Now, there are 2 polls that I wanted to show you just to get your reaction to. Again, I'm at that clutching at straws moment compared to other polling, but there are 2 things worth having a look at here. I'm not mucking around. We all know where I sit on this, right? But better off than they were 4 years ago. 56% of Americans, according to Gallup, and this was taken post when he got the Wu flu, 56 to 32, that they're better off than they were 4 years ago. And an amazing poll, which I love, from Fox News, which was, who do you think your neighbour's going to vote for in August? Well, 39 said Trump, 34 said Biden, but after, again, he got the Rona, this is the poll that came out. And remember, this poll also shows, Biden's going to win, but on this question, 49% now say Trump, 38% say Biden. So help me out. If most people think their neighbours are going to vote for Trump and more than half the country say they're better off than they were 4 years ago, why aren't they going to vote for him?
Well, your research is impeccable. That's really good research, because normally, it's a clear indicator of whether you are going to be re-elected. It's your re-elect indicator is whether you think the country and you are better off than you were when the election was last held. And that's the one in politics that I always defaulted to if I was incumbent government, because that indicated people were reasonably happy with what you've done. Now, that's why I'm not writing off Donald Trump, because there are these sorts of polls out there which do suggest that his vote is going to be bigger than any of the other polls. And I also believe that the number of people who are responding to general pollsters at the moment overrepresents Biden support and underrepresents Trump support. I think that's very real, and more real than the last election, by the way. But having said that, he's got to narrow the gap. And the only way he can narrow the gap is start to get out, because he's being outspent. I mean, a stunning statistic, Paul. The challenger to Lindsey Graham in South Carolina, and Lindsey Graham should be winning by 12 to 13 points. It's too close to call for that Senate race. His challenger raised $57 million for his campaign in the last 3 months. I mean, that's almost more than the entire spend of the average Australian federal election by all parties. And this is one challenger against one sitting senator in 3 months. And so the amount of money, think of the advertising that buys, the people on the ground, because they pay all their people on the ground here, the people they're buying on the ground is extraordinary. Now, that's the part of the campaign that I'm concerned about, because Donald Trump is moving his advertising spend from some of the key states, like the Wisconsins or the Michigans, into Iowa and Ohio, which he should automatically be holding. Now, that means that what is patently obvious is the only way he is going to win. He's going to be outspent. He's going to be out-eulogised. I mean, the media here is feral. It's unwatchable at the moment. moment,
No.
the dripping hatred of Donald Trump. But that the only way he can get back is to hit the campaign trail, and he's hitting 5 states in the next 5 days, and he's got to cut through.
Well, okay, and last one here is that the event of this week, what we know is going to happen this week, which of course means it'll be the 17th thing we talk about next week, because we know how this runs, right?
Yeah.
This judge that they want to get onto the Supreme Court is going to galvanise what the consequences are of presidential elections, whether you like them or not like them. It's one of the reasons evangelicals voted for him, was to be able to get permanent places in the place that will decide law for the next little while. Amy Coney Barrett is her name. I want to ask you about what you think the dangers are for the Democrats here. If you're leading in all the polls, how hard do you fight this one on the way through, and how often should you be playing the games of, just hanging up mid-Zoom call till you lose quorum and all of that stuff?
Look, I think if they're really disruptive, it will reflect poorly on them. One of the Achilles heels of Joe Biden, I think, the biggest Achilles heel is he's going to increase taxes as soon as he's elected. Now, you don't increase taxes in the middle of a recession. That's a no-no. That's disastrous for the economy. He said he's going to abolish the Trump tax cuts and increase taxes as his number one agenda item. Number two, which is a great vulnerability for him, is he and Kamala Harris won't rule out stacking the Supreme Court. And I think Americans are appalled at that. Even Democrats are appalled at that suggestion, because they revere their institutions, notwithstanding who's in control. If the Democrats win the House, the Senate, and the White House, then the only handbrake would possibly be the Supreme Court. And what's become patently clear is that Joe Biden won't rule out appeasing the left by stacking out the Supreme Court. So if this becomes the major issue in the lead up to the election, it's a real vulnerability for Joe Biden. Secondly, Dianne Feinstein is anti-Catholic, and she's shown her colours before. She's on the Judiciary Committee, and there's every chance that she may go down that path again. Now, I think the Democrats are very disciplined at the moment, but all you need is one line from one critical senator, and if that is, anti-Catholic or has tones of being anti-Catholic, then it will blow up the whole issue and it'll work to Donald Trump's advantage.
Everyone write down the name Mazie Hirono. She's nuts, and she'll be the one who'll probably do it, because she can't help trying to swing for the big line. Joe, we're going to talk to you again and put you on notice next week. Everyone else is going to ask you a question as well, all right? Thank you, great man. What an incredible time we have. All the best to you, Joe.
Thank you, mate.